This is Miss Boo.
Before I get into this, I need you to do something for me. If you share a calendar with anyone, your partner, your roommate, anyone, just check it after you finish reading this. I'm not saying that to be dramatic, I actually mean it. And if you see something on there that you don't remember putting in, don't delete it, don't screenshot it, and don't ask about it. Just leave it alone. My wife is alive. I need to say that clearly because I know where this sounds like it's going. She's downstairs right now in the kitchen, pouring herself coffee, and she's humming like she always does in the mornings. And somehow, that's the part that scares me the most. Sarah and I have been married for 7 years. We live a normal life, quiet street, small duplex, nothing unusual. A few years in, we set up a shared Google Calendar so we wouldn't double book things anymore. It worked. For a long time, it was just a tool, nothing more. About 6 weeks ago, she looked up from her phone over breakfast and asked me what I was doing on Tuesday at 9 p.m. I checked my calendar and told her nothing. She turned her phone toward me and there was an event sitting there. Just one letter, M. It was set to repeat every week. I told her I didn't add it. She laughed and said I probably did it half asleep. And honestly, that made sense. We both do things like that sometimes. It didn't feel important. The next morning, it was gone from her phone, completely gone. But when I opened mine, it was sitting there on Tuesday at 9 p.m. like it had always been there. So I deleted it. 2 days later, it was back, but only on her phone again. We tried everything after that, logging out, changing passwords, even calling support. Nothing worked. The strangest part was when we tried to take screenshots. The event would be clearly visible while we were looking at it, but the image would come out blank, like it had never been there at all. That's when it stopped feeling like a glitch. Tuesday came. I was sitting on the couch when I heard the bedroom door open upstairs. Sarah came down already dressed, keys in her hand, coat on, like she was heading out somewhere. She walked right past me without even looking. I said her name once, then again, louder. She stopped at the door, turned, and looked at me. Her face was completely blank. Not confused, not annoyed, just empty. She said, "M, remember?" and then walked out. She came back at 9:46, 1 minute later than the event was supposed to end. She hung her keys up, took off her coat, sat next to me, and asked what I was watching. When I asked her how it went, she looked at me like I'd said something strange. She had no memory of leaving the house. Her phone didn't show the event anymore. Her location history had a gap exactly where those 45 minutes should have been. After that, more events started showing up, not just M anymore. Things like pickup, second meeting, bring the file. Always late in the evening, always only visible on one of our phones at a time. And every Tuesday, she left. Same expression, same walk, same return. And every time, she didn't remember any of it. A few nights later, I woke up around 2 a.m. and realized she wasn't in bed. I found her in the spare bedroom, sitting on the floor in the dark with her phone in her lap. The screen was on, lighting her face from below. She was staring at the calendar. It was completely empty, but her mouth was moving, like she was reading something. There was nothing there. When I touched her shoulder, her skin was cold. Not just cold from the room, colder than it should have been. She blinked, looked at me, asked what time it was, and then just went back to bed. In the morning, she didn't remember any of it. Last Saturday, something changed. A new event appeared in the middle of the day, open group. I followed her. She drove out of town and pulled into the parking lot of an abandoned strip mall. There were 8 other cars already there, 8 people standing outside them. They all walked to the center of the lot and formed a circle. And then they just stood there. For almost an hour, nothing happened. No talking, no movement, nothing. At some point, one of them stepped forward into the middle of the circle, stood there for a few seconds, and stepped back. At exactly 3 o'clock, all of them turned at the same time, walked back to their cars, and left. Like they were following something, like it had already been decided. That's when I realized this didn't start 6 weeks ago. I went back through old photos. There's one from 2 years ago where you can see her phone on the table. There's a calendar notification on the screen. One letter, M. And in a photo from when we were dating, there's a man in the background, tan jacket, just sitting there, looking directly at the camera. He was in the parking lot. He was there before I even knew her. This morning, an event appeared on my phone. Not hers, mine. Tonight, 9 p.m. Last. I told myself I wouldn't go. I put my phone away, sat in the spare room, and watched the clock. I remember thinking that if I just stayed there, if I didn't move, nothing would happen. But at some point, I realized I was standing. I don't remember getting up. My keys were already in my hand. My coat was on. The next thing I remember clearly, I was sitting in my car. The engine was running, and I was already there. The same parking lot, the same circle, except this time, I wasn't watching. I was standing with them. I don't know how long I was there. I don't know if I moved. I don't know if I stepped forward. I only know that when I came back, it was 9:46, 1 minute late. If you share a calendar with someone, go check it. Look at everything carefully. And if you see something you don't remember, just leave it alone. Because you might think it's just an entry, but it isn't. It's already scheduled.
Growing up, I always thought the worst thing that could happen to someone was losing a person they loved. But honestly, now I think the worst thing is being the only person left who remembers they ever existed in the first place. I know how insane that sounds. Trust me, I do. But I genuinely don't know what else I'm supposed to think anymore. My best friend is disappearing. Not physically. I mean, every trace of him is disappearing. And I think it's been happening right in front of me for weeks. His name was Ethan. At least, I'm pretty sure it was Ethan. 3 weeks ago, we were playing Minecraft together at like 2:30 in the morning when my mum stormed into my room yelling at me for talking too loud. She asked me who I was talking to and I said, Ethan. Because it was. He'd been my best friend since we were kids. He used to sleep over constantly, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, and he came over. There is absolutely no way she could have forgotten him, but she just stood there, staring at me with this weird look on her face and asked, "Who's Ethan?" I honestly thought she was joking at first. Meanwhile, Ethan's laughing through my headset going, "Dude, your mum seriously doesn't remember me." And I laughed too, because what else was I supposed to do? But after she left the room, something about it kept bothering me. The next morning I opened Discord and immediately noticed our entire call history was gone. Every single call we'd ever had together had completely vanished. The messages were still there. Photos too. Voice notes. Everything except the calls. I remember scrolling for ages trying to figure out what the hell happened. I thought maybe Discord bugged out or something. Then later that night, things got even worse. I messaged Ethan while I was out at dinner with my family, and everything seemed normal at first. But then his messages started glitching. Like, not typo glitching, wrong glitching. Corrupted. He sent "betbro TTYL" twice, and then a third version came through, all broken apart like the words themselves were falling apart while he typed them. Then he instantly went offline. I remember just staring at my phone, feeling sick to my stomach. When I got home later that night, I loaded into our Minecraft realm, and his character was standing directly in front of mine waiting for me. That alone almost made me jump, because the timing felt so weird. I asked him what happened with the messages, and he acted like he had no idea what I was talking about. We played for maybe another hour before my mum walked into my room again, asking if I wanted to watch a movie with her and my sister. I told her I was busy playing with Ethan, and once again she gave me that same look. That same confused look. Then she said something that honestly made my stomach drop. She told me I hadn't had friends over in years. I actually laughed because I thought she had to be screwing with me at that point. Then she brought up the sleepover we had last week and said it was actually my cousin Daniel who came over, not Ethan. And the weirdest part is, suddenly, I could kind of remember Daniel being there, but only vaguely, like the memory had been edited after it happened, like something was trying to patch over Ethan's existence with someone else. I turned back to my monitor and saw a message pop up saying, Ethan joined the game, except there was never a message saying he left in the first place. I checked the player list, and it showed I was the only one online. Then a message appeared in chat, just one word, help. I typed back immediately asking what was wrong, but before I could even send another message, every single thing he'd written in the chat disappeared right in front of me, one line at a time, like the game itself was deleting him while I watched. Over the next few days, things just kept getting worse. People at school stopped recognizing his name. Teachers acted like I was talking to myself whenever I spoke to him in class. Then Ethan himself started changing. The first thing I noticed was his hair wasn't blonde anymore. It had turned brown somehow. Then I noticed the scar on his lip was gone. Completely gone. He'd had that scar literally his entire life. I remember staring at him in the parking lot outside the IGA, trying to process what I was looking at, while he just stood there looking terrified, like genuinely terrified. He grabbed my arm really hard and whispered, "Help me." I asked him what was happening, but before he could answer, my mum yelled out to me from the car park. I looked away for maybe 2 seconds. When I turned back around, he was gone, completely gone. I searched everywhere around the store before pulling out my phone to message him, except his contact wasn't there anymore. His Instagram was gone. Snapchat too. Everything. That night I opened Discord on my computer and saw "Ethan is typing" pop up on screen. It stayed there for almost 2 full minutes before disappearing. Then it came back again, then disappeared again. Finally, an audio file came through. I played it expecting him to explain everything, but it was just static. Wet sounding static. I don't know how else to describe it. Underneath it, I swear I could hear breathing, like somebody trying to breathe underwater. Then Discord hit me with an error message saying the user didn't exist. I started scrolling through our old chat in panic, and I swear to God, his messages started disappearing while I watched. Photos turning blank, voice messages corrupting, entire years of conversations deleting themselves in real time. The next morning I skipped school and went straight to Ethan's house because I needed answers. His mum answered the door, and the second I mentioned his name, she looked absolutely horrified. Not confused, horrified. I told her who I was, and that I'd known Ethan my whole life, and she just started crying. Then she said something I still can't stop thinking about. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You shouldn't remember him." I asked her what that meant, but she just shut the door in my face. That night I searched every yearbook, every class photo, every old hard drive I owned. Ethan was gone from all of them. Not blurred out, not photoshopped, just absent. Like reality decided there was never supposed to be someone standing next to me in the first place. The worst part is, I typed most of this a week ago, and it's already getting harder to remember him. His face feels blurry now. I think his name was Ethan, or maybe Evan, I don't know anymore. Every time I try to remember, my head starts hurting, like my brain itself is trying to reject the memory. But there's one thing I still remember clearly. Last night, at around 2:30 in the morning, I heard Discord's call ringtone coming through my headphones. My computer wasn't even turned on, and for a few seconds, I could hear somebody laughing quietly on the other end.
Nobody said rabies at first. Tom Evans was the one who finally whispered it, and even then he sounded embarrassed for saying it out loud, like the word itself felt too dramatic for what was happening. The mare had been acting strange all afternoon, pacing the stall during the storm and snapping her head toward noises that didn't exist. But horses spook easily, especially during weather like that. Nobody wanted to jump straight to something awful. Then she started screaming. Not neighing, not panicked whickering, actual screaming. The sound carried across the flooded yard and through the barn office where Ruth, her son Caleb, and old Mr. Priest stood listening in silence. It sounded wrong in a way Ruth could never properly explain afterward. Too deep, wet somehow. like the noise had to force itself through water before leaving the animal's throat. Rain hammered the roof hard enough to shake the windows. Outside, the yard had turned into black mud and standing floodwater that reflected lightning in broken flashes. Every few seconds, the storm lit up the stable block just enough for Ruth to see the mare throwing herself against the stall door. Not kicking it, throwing her entire body at it. Wood cracked under the impacts. "She's colicking," Caleb whispered. Mr. Priest didn't answer. He was 68 years old and had worked around horses longer than Ruth had been alive. He kept staring through the office window with the same expression people get right before they hear terrible news. The mare slammed into the stall again, and the whole stable shook. One hinge shrieked. "She bit Tom," Ruth said quietly. Nobody responded to that either. 20 minutes earlier, Tom had gone into the stall carrying a bucket and lead rope, swearing the mare was only frightened by the thunder. Ruth still remembered how casual he looked, opening the lower half of the door. Then the mare lunged. Not like a horse bites normally, not a warning nip. She hit him with everything she had. Ruth saw the teeth sink into his forearm and jerk backward violently enough that Tom almost disappeared into the stall with her. The sound he made afterward barely sounded human. He eventually stumbled free and ran across the yard, holding his arm against his chest while blood streamed through his fingers and splattered onto the concrete. Mr. Priest wrapped the wound in old feed towels and shoved him into the Land Rover with instructions to get to the hospital immediately. Then the lower road flooded. Then the power went out. Then the screaming started. Lightning flashed again. The mare stood halfway reared against the stall front, with saliva hanging from her mouth in thick ropes that swung across the wood. Her lips had peeled so far back from her gums that every tooth showed white in the stormlight. She kept biting at the door, at the walls, at her own shoulder. Blood striped one front leg where she'd kicked through the boards. "There," Caleb whispered suddenly. Ruth followed his stare and felt her stomach drop. The stall door was bending outward in the center, not opening, bending. The wood looked soft from the constant impacts. One more hit like that, and the entire front would collapse. Mr. Priest grabbed the shotgun beside the heater. "Feed room, now!" Ruth shoved Caleb toward the back room, just as the mare hit the stall again. This time the upper hinge tore loose, and the door burst open. For one horrible second, the mare stood tangled in broken wood and hanging metal brackets, while rain poured off her body. Her head jerked violently sideways, like something inside her neck had come loose. Her eyes rolled so far white that Ruth could barely see the pupils anymore. Then the mare looked directly toward the office window and charged. Mud and black water exploded beneath her hooves as she sprinted across the flooded yard, with part of the broken stall door still hanging from one side of her body. She was limping badly now, one hind leg dragging strangely behind her, but it didn't slow her down at all. It looked like the pain wasn't reaching her anymore. Ruth slammed the office door shut just as the mare hit it from outside. The impact sounded like a car crash. Caleb screamed. The second hit shook dust from the rafters and shoved muddy water beneath the door. Something outside snorted wetly through foam and mucus. Then came the chewing, teeth grinding steadily through wood. Mr. Priest loaded shells into the shotgun with shaking hands. "If she gets through, you get behind the feed bins and don't come out." "She's just scared," Caleb cried. The chewing stopped immediately. Rain hammered the roof. The other horses kicked and screamed in their stalls. Then, from directly outside the office door, came slow breathing. Ruth felt every hair on her arms rise. The mare had pressed its face against the crack beneath the door. She could hear it inhaling slowly, smelling them. The lower panel suddenly splintered inward, and a black hoof punched through the wood, thrashing wildly across the floorboards. Caleb stumbled backward, crying. Then teeth appeared in the opening. Huge yellow teeth snapping through the widening gap. Strings of saliva swung from the mare's mouth and slapped wetly onto the concrete. The foam was pink now, not from her blood. Mr. Priest raised the shotgun and fired. The blast deafened the room. For half a second, everything went silent except for ringing ears and drifting smoke. Then, something hit the office door again, even harder than before. The entire frame jumped sideways. Mr. Priest broke the shotgun open with trembling hands and stared at the door. No blood, no collapse. He'd missed. Outside, the mare began making a noise Ruth would remember for the rest of her life. It wasn't screaming anymore. It wasn't even animal. It sounded thick and wet deep in the throat, mixed with frantic clicking teeth, like something drowning was trying to laugh. Another impact shook the office, and the wood around the lock split open. Then suddenly the mare stopped. Complete silence outside. Even the other horses had gone quiet. Ruth realized she couldn't hear breathing anymore either. Mr. Priest slowly stepped toward the damaged door. "Don't," Ruth whispered. He ignored her. The office smelled horrible now. Wet fur, rotting meat, blood. Mr. Priest leaned closer to the broken panel, trying to see through the hole. For a second, Ruth saw nothing outside except darkness and rain. Then the mare's eye opened directly against the splintered gap, milky white, completely still, watching them. Mr. Priest staggered backwards so violently he nearly dropped the gun. And from somewhere deeper inside the stable block, another horse started screaming too.
If this story gave you chills, don't forget to subscribe, because the next one might be even worse.